And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking the worst kept secret in Formula One has been announced today, as in Adrian Newey finally announced at Aston Martin to work with Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Yeah, we're going to be talking about why it might necessarily not be the best thing that everyone else seems to be saying it actually is. So, welcome to Adrian Newey Aston Martin Fest. I just want to quickly share with you this video of Max Verstappen when they announced Adrian Newey. This was tomorrow, but I thought this was great. A Red Bull fan
isn't leading the championship,
and there we go. He is now an Aston Martin fan. One more time, Adrian Newey announced to Aston Martin. Is this going to be happening anytime soon with the Red Bull fans? To the Aston Martin fans, maybe. I appreciate it. Probably isn't. No. But it is very much this man here that has now been announced for Aston Martin on a rumoured 20 million a year. Potentially 30 million. I think that's US dollars, million a year. In US dollars with bonuses. So he is in his mid to late 60s. Yes, he is rumoured to be going full time at the Aston Martin team. There he is with Lawrence Stroll. But how good is Adrian Newey going to be in his late 60s? He's still got the drive, and mentally, I think, as Fernando Alonso has proven, if you're still there, you're going to be there. Absolutely. Now, before we get into what may be the negatives about Adrian Newey going to Aston Martin, the race has got an interesting article. 4 things we learnt from Newey's F1 debut at Aston Martin. So Lawrence Stroll's F1 designer, who could warrant such a grand live streamed event. It was live streamed earlier. Well, not say earlier today because it's now Wednesday, but earlier on Tuesday. The biggest surprise? No, not really. But as we know, he's got a absolutely unique way. And Stroll says he'll be giving leadership and direction to his team on a full-time basis. That's quite important because there were all these rumours that Adrian, to be fair, debunked that he wasn't quite full-time at Red Bull. And even in the hybrid era, he kind of took a back seat because that was all about the engine. The Renault engine wasn't very good. And yeah, and let's be fair, the Red Bull did not win. So the caveat is that he's full-time to start with. The article says his primary focus is going to be on the 2026 F1 car and the 2026 regulations. So the regulations, they can start working on them from the 1st of January 2025, I believe. So he's 65. He's not going to have that day-to-day role indefinitely, it says. But it seems fair to conclude that there's a plan for him to ease back his hands-on role for the first few years. And also, if he didn't, he's been offered shares. So, as people say, the cliche, he's got skin in the game. I've no idea why I twisted my hands around my head, but there. So then he can still do what he's done at Red Bull and breathe his creative magic into the team, which is obviously why he has been hired. Newey will shape Aston, apparently. A takeaway from the launch event is that Newey is very much a partner to Stroll. Not only officially in his capacity as a stakeholder in the team, but as someone who Stroll trusts to reshape and lead the technical team as he sees fit. Stroll says he'll leave the structure up to Adrian. Yes, well, we've heard similar things from Stroll before. We'll get into that in a bit. So Newey has plenty of technical brains at his disposal, but it's unclear whether there'll be room for all of them. And that's the interesting. There was no news of reshuffling at the event, so that maybe left for Newey to rule on when he joined the team. And that's one thing, one of the reasons why apparently Ferrari didn't take him, because he wanted a lot of say and sway in who he hires as his own engineers, which, to be fair, isn't, it's good. But then again, that Ferrari is currently the last time we saw the Ferrari car, it beat the Red Bull car. But that could be because Adrian Newey's not there. Who knows? So we've also got Andy Cowell as an engineering-focused CEO. The potential is there for the greatest engine designer, greatest chassis engineer of their eras to combine with Bob Bell overseeing the expansion of the facilities. It's going to be interesting. How did he convince Newey? Well, it says here, just as Niki Lauda was crucial to Lewis Hamilton joining Mercedes, Frank Williams was critical to convincing Alain Prost Senna to join his team, Lawrence Stroll. So much so, when asked what brought you here, Newey laughed as he quickly replied, Lawrence, that's easy because Lawrence has lots of money. The rumour of 30 million a year won't hurt. I think that's with bonuses, though, if I'm honest. That's what a lot of people have been saying. Stroll arranged a private tour of Aston Martin's facilities, which was very nice. That was rumoured, I think, back in May of this year. And Stroll sold Newey on the idea of bringing this team up from the midfield to the front from 2026. That's very similar to when Adrian Newey went to the Red Bull team. Let's be fair, they were seen as a party team, not too serious, and By 2010, they were very serious when Vettel won his first title with them. They won their first race, though, in 2009. But there's also something new in that Aston offers Newey. Newey has the freedom to shape Aston and gets shares in the team, something Newey was famously denied by Williams before his exit in the 1990s. That ticked him off. The other thing that ticked Adrian Newey off was the fact that he didn't have in his contract, he had a say on who drives for Williams. Obviously, he didn't have the final say, but he had a say. And bearing in mind, when they kind of sacked Nigel Mansell, he was like, well, that's not very good. And then they sacked Damon Hill at the end of 96. He was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with Williams. And he stressed that he was at Aston for the long haul. Perhaps tellingly, it says, Newey's first nod to Red Bull during the launch event was as follows. I announced to everybody that I'd be departing the old team, and there were very few mentions of Red Bull thereafter, or his reasoning for leaving the team. Newey made it clear that leaving the Red Bull and joining Aston Martin are two very separate decisions. He felt staying with the Red Bull was no longer tenable, then went about deciding whether to join another F1 team, receiving offers from many different teams, or walk away from the championship altogether. I think we all knew he wasn't going to walk away from the championship altogether. No, there was absolutely no way that was gonna happen at all. So, with this big thing, why, for example, is this not particularly the best thing? Well, first of all, we go back to an interview on the 25th of August, 2023, which could have been one of the catalysts that Christian Horner gave, and this could have been one of the catalysts for the failing Horner-Newey relationship. And it was an interview where Horner downplays Newey's role in the RB19 for F1 dominance. And this is an article from Goodwood.com, and it starts by saying it would be all too easy to single out one man as the guiding light behind Red Bull's current domination. But there can be no doubt Adrian Newey is arguably the greatest designer in F1 history, whose creations have delivered a cavalcade of trophies. Absolutely they have. But Principal Christian Horner is keen to emphasise the Red Bull cars that have strangled the life out of F1 for the last 18 months are the brainchild of a collective and not simply Newey alone. He said the team has matured a long way and they obviously did the research on these regulations. What was particularly impressive in 21, we had a remarkable championship battle and we were very late with the 22 car. And of course, Adrian was injured for a large part of the summer. Or the last part of the summer, and I think the team really stepped up and did an impressive job across the board in this car. It's wrong to pull any single individual. It's a collective team effort, and that and as galvanised. And I thought that was quite telling. People thought, oh, that's interesting. Is he dissing Adrian Newey? But he may well have been telling the truth, Christian Horner, or was it political in the sense that he thought Horner was happy and he didn't want to lose any other technical people? Or I mean, this is the thing. So when Adrian Newey goes there, all your other teams do hard work, and Adrian Newey, rightly or wrongly, sometimes gets the praise. But I think if you were like the number 2 and number 3, designer that designed maybe key pieces and felt actually I had a massive input in here, Adrian Newey wasn't around as much potentially, but he's getting all of the credit. I imagine you'd probably be a tiny bit upset, assuming that very much was the truth with Christian Horner. Now, I thought this was an interesting article here because this gives the top 5 best, which we won't get into, we'll do that another day, but the bottom 5 Adrian Newey cars. And yes, he has made some duds. And this is on racefans.com. And it says here, first of all, it was the McLaren MP4 17A from 2002. It just had the one winner. I believe that was David Coulthard in the Monaco Grand Prix. And it finished third in the title. A decade on from Williams' dominant title win, another F1 car was sweeping all before. But it wasn't designed by Newey, it was Michael Schumacher's 2002 season. Now, it says some of the problems could be blamed for its troubled gestation. It said McLaren had split from Bridgestone, who were increasingly favouring Ferrari. Yes, that did have a big thing. And there was Michelin. The result was, by Newey's admission, a clumsy design. So at least he's honest. He sets about revising the rear suspension and gearbox, but modifications were completed late in the seasons, and some held over the following season. The car only won once in Monaco. McLaren expected a significant improvement for the following year, but in seeking to correct the course, Newey made another misstep, and we'll get into that car in a bit. So we've got the RB11, the year 2015. It finished third, but it had no wins. So this was the weak link in the Red Bull's 2015 machine, in the hybrid era, arguably their worst car. and arguably every one of the team's cars between 2014 and 18. Unquestionably, it said it blamed the Renault engine, the manufacturer which powered them to 4 constructors' titles consecutive at the end of the V8 era. Nevertheless, it said Newey's RB10 was the only thing which prevented Mercedes from winning every race in 2014, taking 3 victories for Ricciardo. But it soon came clear Renault did not share Red Bull's Newey's resolve to turn their form around. And then this is when Newey became kind of like disinterested. And it even says here, Newey was given other projects to entertain himself, including a hypercar for Aston Martin, which became the team's title sponsor. But while in the past he found ways to make up for the shortfall in performance from the engine, the RB11 failed to win a single victory. So Newey lost interest because, because he wasn't winning, because maybe that's because he wasn't allowed to be creative because the rules restricted. And that there is that danger for 2026 where he looks at it, and there are rumours that it may well be an engine formula, and that won't be particularly good either for young Adrian. Now we've got the FW16. This was 1994. It did win the constructors though, and 7 wins. Now it ultimately won the World Championship constructors. The FW16 remains one of Newey's least favourite cars, obviously for obvious reasons. Ayrton Senna. It is the only one of his designs that's lost. We'll glaze over that. But this was following the FIA's decision to ban driver aids. No team had more to do in order to adjust to the new regulation than Williams, who'd mastered the active suspension. But when they took it off, their car hit the track, and Senna and Damon Hill were reporting handling issues, and it was unstable at speed. Newey believed he identified the source of the problem in a test after the second round of the season and began work on revised revised side pods. Later, the improvements of the car's handling succeeded. The combined efforts of Hill plus teammate Mansell and Coulthard delivered another constructor's title. Now we've got his Leighton House, March 891. This one, I think is kind of like a bit unfair, simply because it was an underfunded team, although it wasn't particularly great, was it? They finished 12th, no wins, obviously. So yeah, let's move on to their worst car, and it was the McLaren MP4 18 from 2000, and it was the 2003 car, which kind of got raced in 2004 in the end. So if the 14B was the car so good its replacement wasn't necessary, the MP4 18 was the so-called car so flawed it couldn't be raced. It's a slightly unfair. Part of the reason McLaren never raced its intended 2003 season was that the Evolution, the MP4 17D, which was an update of their 2002 car, was very effective in the opening rounds, giving Kimi Raikkonen a good chance, a sniff at the championship. But the 18 made its appearance 2 weeks earlier in a test at Paul Ricard in France, so prior, around Monaco time. And the visible, more aggressive design made its predecessor and most of its rivals appear dumpy. Look at it. It does look. It is really, really nice. But too many concessions have been made to achieve its bodywork, and the car seldom ran for more than a handful of laps before being greeted by mechanics with fire extinguishers, gearboxes going wrong. Vert suffered heavy crashes. So did Raikkonen, to the point where it was rumoured he said, "I'm not driving that car." At least the team season was going well. But yeah, even Newey admitted in his autobiography, not necessarily my proudest moment. He said, "I totally lost it. Call Martin. I totally lost it." Yeah, the team, and the reason why Newey totally lost it is because Newey wanted a complete redesign, and they said no. And then the 2004 car was made based on this, which wasn't very good until Adrian Newey was allowed to do what he can do. So Adrian Newey is the best designer in Formula One at the moment, absolutely, bar none. But also, we can't forget he is working for this man here, Lawrence Stroll. And herein lies the kicker. Once the honeymoon period is over, what's going to happen? And the reason I go back to this 2021 story is Colin Collins says Aston Martin staff are demoralised under Lance Stroll and have a radically different vision to him. Stroll, the father of Lance, brought the team then known as Force India in 2018. And it says they remained at Racing Point until the end of the 2020 campaign, in which they won a race and finished P4. Their relative success last season caused a huge amount of controversy because they had the pink Mercedes. If you remember their time at Racing Point, not Racing Point. According to Collins, a former team principal of Force India, the engineers didn't want to take this approach, but were forced to by Stroll. In the past, engineers were allowed to develop themselves here, he's quoted. They had a very little budget and they were very young. They're a very young and efficient, very motivated, in some case, very innovative. Since Stroll has been in charge, that things have changed, and I mean everything. He said the engineers actually wanted to build a different car, one with a heavily sloping rear like the Red Bull, because the team made its cars according to this philosophy for years. But Stroll wanted a copy of the Mercedes, because that seemed like the easiest way for him to achieve goals. It's my way or no way. That was Stroll's mentality. He bought everything from Wolf. And then running a similar design to Mercedes has hurt Aston Martin this year. The low-rate car hasn't designed so well. But I mean, and therein lies the point. Lawrence Stroll. He's obviously, the owner of the team, but potentially it's kind of like he knows a bit about Formula One, but sometimes knowing a little information is bad. It's sometimes almost worse than knowing nothing. But if you're going to make decisions like that, and this is where I'm suggesting potentially he may well clash with Adrian Newey over what their concepts are and where they want to take the team forward, except Adrian Newey does have shares. That's how he, I don't want to say coerced, but convinced him to come to Aston Martin. And that's, for me, that's one of the concerns going forward, is what happens when in 2026 it may well be an engine forward, but Adrian Newey doesn't get it right straight away. Why would he? It's a building thing. But I can't, this guy's impatient. He wants his son, I reckon, to be world champion. And Lance Stroll is never, ever going to be world championship material. I mean, this is a man throughout his years has been beaten by his teammate in pretty much every year. And not, and when they did have a car capable of finishing in the podium, he didn't get a podium. He's lucked out on a few podiums, let's be fair, with things happening. The only time I think he looked like a genuine race winner was Turkey, when he got, I think in 2020, when he got that pole position and led. Other than that, he's just looked good rather than anything else. And herein lies the other thing that's slightly concerning is that going to, I mean, the fact that this guy wants almost to, if he could, he would buy his son a world championship. That does make him a good father, I guess. He loves his son. He'd do anything for his son. We would, I mean, as a dad, pretty much I'll do anything for my kids within some kind of reason. But it's clear that this guy, no one says no to him. He's not used to saying no. So if there is going to be a clash with Adrian Newey and Lawrence Stroll, I imagine it won't particularly end well for Adrian Newey, who we know when he doesn't quite agree with something, he leaves. He goes. He left Williams, he left McLaren, and we yet to know why. We don't know why he left. He left the Red Bull team. But that's the massive question mark. One of the massive question marks I've got. And if then Newey seems, who does have a lot of integrity, I believe, in respect of, he was very unhappy with the way Nigel Mansell was treated. He was very unhappy with the way Damon Hill was treated, albeit that is a long time ago. So if he sees drivers being mismanaged for the sake of Lance Stroll winning a championship, is that going to have an effect on him? Because I can assure you, if that car has the potential of winning a world championship, they've got like a 2014 gap to the competition that Mercedes had. Well, surely then at that point, Lawrence Stroll is going to be like, yeah, my son needs to win. He's going to win the championship. And with all the rumoured team orders from some of Lance's teammates in lower formula to let him through to win, yeah, it's a bit chilling, isn't it? And I've always said I cannot take Aston Martin seriously as a Formula One team because you've got Lance Stroll in there when you could have had so many other better drivers in there. But I thought, and that's the thing that Adrian Newey is going to have to come to. When you see the team itself, everyone has seemingly bent the knee, including Fernando Alonso, in terms of they never criticise Lance Stroll. You don't criticise Lance Stroll, do you? And therein lies the issue. And I guess we're going to have our fingers crossed, because an article in motorsport.com, I'll just read a bit. This is by Mark Hughes back in, I think it was this year, around Imola time, where they had not done particularly well. And he says, team boss Lawrence Stroll, I'll share it with you here. Team boss Lawrence Stroll did not react well to the updated cars showing Imola. There was reportedly something of a volcanic response to qualifying. His patience is clearly being tested by the reversal of last year's positive trajectory. Alonso believes, or at least wants to believe, the boss traits will be part of the reason we'll recover. He said, I think different to other teams. We have a great leader with Lawrence, not only the owner of the team, but also a very, very extremely competitive person behind it. And we will fix things quicker than other teams, I think, thanks to him. Well, they haven't, have they? Sadly. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? To the very least. I want to be an Aston Martin fan, but first of all, they are so close to being a serious F1 team. They got the facilities, they got the staff. They only have 50% of the drivers, sadly. And when that happens, absolutely gangbusters for me. I will be convinced of Aston Martin wanting to do seriously. You're not a serious team because you got Lance Stroll there, but you also have the best designer there, the best designer, and this does make Adrian Newey one of the highest paid people in sports. That's not actually that's not actually doing the sport in terms of he's not actually out there racing the F1. So he's got to be one of the highest paid managers. Full stop. I imagine he's going to be one of the three, not part of the budget cap, obviously, as well. So, anyway, I digress. This has been my thoughts on Adrian Newey going to Red Bull. I'm looking forward to how it plays out, but there is a massive but still. So if you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button. That would be very, very good. And other than that, we'll speak to you soon. And stay safe.